Hi, I'm Brad Allen, and today we're going to be talking about 5 techniques for up-tempo jazz drumming. First technique is very simple. Instead of playing your standard jazz rhythm on the ride cymbal, you can play quarter notes. And the first person I ever heard doing this was Steve Gadd. I believe it was on a recording called Burning for Buddy. And at the time I remember thinking, if it's good enough for Steve Gadd, it's good enough for any drummer, because in my mind, Steve Gadd's one of the greatest drummers who ever lived. I've also found that playing quarter notes instead of your standard jazz ride cymbal rhythm with a big band, especially when you're playing a really up-tempo tune, is actually easier for the band. It makes it easier for the band to hear the groove and play along. So it's definitely an option. So let me demonstrate that for you. The next technique I'd like to talk about is the French grip. If you're going to play more than quarter notes at a fast tempo, it's much easier to do so with the French grip than the German grip. The German grip is basically like this. You've got both the hands flat. The French grip, you have the thumb on top, and it uses a lot more fingers. It's just easier to play fast this way. I'm not going to go into a lot of explanation about the French grip in this video. I have a whole video on developing the French grip that you can watch for that. But I'm going to demonstrate up-tempo jazz using the French grip here so you can see what I'm talking about. The third technique is to modify the basic jazz cymbal rhythm for up-tempo playing. Slow and medium jazz is basically based on the shuffle rhythm. You know, the shuffle rhythm's like this. So your jazz rhythm at that tempo would be 1, 2, 3, 4, all 1, 2. And for slow and medium jazz, that works well. As you get faster, what's going to happen is it starts to even out. It becomes more like well, you can think of it based on 16th notes, or you can also think of it as cut time based on quarter notes and eighths. At a fast tempo, it's going to sound like 1 and a 2 and a 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 1. So I'm going to demonstrate that for you. I'll start it off slow and then gradually work it up so you can hear how it changes at a fast tempo. And what I did for years to master this is every day I would start off very slow and gradually move the metronome up, basically to try to get it as fast as I could. And I still have to work on that. Otherwise, I find out if I'm not playing that fast all the time, eventually I start to kind of, my chops get a little out of shape, so I have to keep working on it all the time. So as you all know, there's always something to work on. But anyway, I'm going to demonstrate that for you here. The next technique has to do with the hi-hat. Basically, for up-tempo jazz, you can develop the hi-hat pattern exactly the way you develop the ride cymbal pattern. What I have found, though, is up to a certain tempo, it works really, really well to play it almost exactly like the ride cymbal. And then, because of just the physics of sound, it starts to sound to my ear just kind of muddy after a certain tempo. And so what I learned years ago, and I do some of the time, is I actually break the pattern up between my two hands. I'm playing the same pattern, but I'm playing 2 and 4 with the left hand. And from what I understand, I don't know if this is true or not, but what I had heard years ago was that Buddy Rich and Louis Bellson actually did this some. So I don't know if that's right or not, but that's what I heard. So anyway, I'm going to demonstrate this at different tempos. By the way that most jazz drummers probably played this, including those drummers, was with the hand underneath the hi-hat. They liked the sound. I don't do that so much anymore myself. I usually keep both hands on top. I find that it lends itself to more patterns. I can do more on the hi-hat if I got both hands on top. I'm always experimenting, so once in a while you'll see me put my left hand under the hi-hat, but for the most part I play on top. So anyway, I'm going to demonstrate that two-handed pattern at different tempos so you can see exactly how that works at faster tempos. The fifth technique has to do with playing basically interactively rather than independently. The way most people learn how to play jazz is to keep the ride cymbal pattern going, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 with your right hand. And while you're doing that, you play different things with the left hand and different things with the bass drum and maybe the hi-hat, without making any variations in that right-handed pattern. And that's a good thing to practice. It gives you more control over the drum set. It's always a valid thing to play. It works really well for slower tempos and medium tempos. But I eventually realized at very fast tempos, it was very hard to maintain that strict jazz ride cymbal rhythm. I found it to be very restrictive, and it really limited what I could do with the other limbs. And so eventually I learned to play more interactively. And this method was, well, he's probably not the first one that described it, but the first time I became aware of it, I read a book by Bob Moses years ago called Drum Wisdom. And he talked about non-independent drumming, and that's where I really became aware of this. So now I'm going to demonstrate. I'm going to do this at a slower tempo for you first. A couple things I want to mention here. You can play basically interactively, keeping this hi-hat going on 2 and 4, and this is basically independent in that case, but it's the only thing that's really independent. The rest of them are playing kind of interactively. You can also make the hi-hat part of the whole flow and part of your overall pattern, and basically not keep it going on 2 and 4, which is the way, I think Roy Haynes was probably the first drummer to play that way. And a lot of the modern jazz drummers play that way. Jack DeJohnette, for instance. So anyway, I'm going to demonstrate. First I'll demonstrate keeping the hi-hat going on 2 and 4, and I'll demonstrate different tempos, and then I will demonstrate playing with the hi-hat more interactively, kind of as another voice, just like the bass or the snare drum. Well, I hope you found this video useful. And if you are enjoying these videos, please go ahead and take the time to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'd really appreciate that. And also, if you have any questions about any of these techniques, you can contact me through my website at bradallendrums.com.